the HIMARS, which once again changed the course of the battle. The Russians launched a large-scale assault in the Dobropilya direction. Columns of equipment, motorcyclists and infantry of the occupiers moved in to try to push back the defenders and take the village of Volodymyrivka. The battle is still ongoing, although our soldiers have already destroyed all of the enemy's equipment, sparing neither drones nor shells. They also struck the occupiers with HIMARS rockets. These rocket systems have been operating at the front since 2022, but for the first time, we will show how skillfully they change the battlefield. TSN special correspondent Yulia Karyenko will tell us how the Russian offensive ended.
Among themselves, the soldiers call this machine the chimera of the front. And it's no wonder, because they always try to hide it as far away from prying eyes as possible, especially now when Russian drones are lurking everywhere. This is a HIMARS, a multiple launch rocket system. And right now, the HIMARS crew, 3 soldiers who have been up since 4 in the morning because of the massive Russian assault, will change the course of the Russian offensive.
At the moment, the intensity is very high. There are a lot of targets being hit over the course of 4 hours. We've already struck about 15 targets. The last time we saw this level of intensity was somewhere on the Lyman direction.
Here are those targets. Russian infantry on vehicles, buggies and motorcycles launched an assault in the Dobropilya direction. About 300 soldiers tried to break through to the village of Volodymyrivka. They moved in columns, something that hadn't happened in this direction for several months.
A mechanized assault involving a very large number, indeed dozens upon dozens, of various motor vehicles, and also something that has been quite rare here for many months. They extensively use diverse types of armored transformers, including BMPs of this particular kind, and also powerful tanks.
As many as 5 Russian brigades today threw their forces in from 2 directions. The approach of the first Russian column is reported over the radio by the HIMARS commanders. Rough morning?
Tense, I would say.
Why?
A lot of work. Unfortunately, the enemy is advancing. We need to shoot them down. The more, the better.
The HIMARS commander has received the coordinates of the Russian column. Here it is, on the road in the middle of the field. But in artillery terms, its location is measured in numbers. The commander enters them into the tablet, and the crew of the American system heads out to fire. The HIMARS raises its body with a rocket-packed pod, turns it toward the front, and suddenly folds it back. The Russian column has shifted. It's always difficult to fire at a moving target, the artillerymen say, so the coordinates have to be entered again. It's far too dangerous to stand out in the open field like this for so long, because the vehicle could be spotted by an enemy aircraft. The guys have to work pretty quickly here. Right now they're covering the front near Dobropilya, and they have to act fast and get away, since the Russians wouldn't hesitate to use an Iskander missile on a vehicle like this. In these shots, you can see the Russians attacking our defensive line. The pilots counted 30 motorcycles with assault troops and another 35 armored vehicles.
The enemy is using a pushing tactic. I would call it a pushing tactic. What is it about? They take losses, and yet the next wave still comes. They suffer losses every 20, 30, 50 meters as they advance. And again they take losses, and again someone keeps pushing them forward.
Before they manage to push their assault troops all the way to our trenches, the data is updated. The artillerymen hear it again over the radio, redeploy their vehicle, and finally launch the first rocket. The HIMARS quickly packs up and hides in the bushes. The shot is successful, but it's not the last one. Once again, the Chimera heads out into the field. Now they need to escape as quickly as possible, and preferably without being noticed. The HIMARS and the commander's vehicle quickly drive away, but not to rest. They're going to reload again. At this moment, the task of destroying Russian vehicles is taken over by FPV drones from the 82nd Air Assault Brigade. Here, one of them approaches an already damaged armored vehicle with a red star. The occupiers' markings have remained unchanged for the 4th year of the war. And it's this very symbol that makes a good target, the paratroopers say.
Tanks covered in armor were coming at my battalion, as well as BMPs and BMDs, all heavily, very heavily armored. But that didn't stop us from destroying them. There were also BTR-82s and motorized vehicles on motorcycles.
The battle is not over. The HIMARS is racing across the Donetsk steppe, heading back to the positions. Today, the guys are working so intensely because the Russians are advancing in the Dobropilya direction that they barely have time to reload. They've already launched more than a dozen rockets and are heading out to work again, and we're going with them. And everything has to be done very quickly. But today, fortunately, the weather is on our side. It's cloudy, so we hope we won't be as visible to Russian drones. The vehicle parks in the field and sets up the launcher. It only takes a few minutes to get ready, and the operator inside the cabin presses launch again. Our paratroopers and artillerymen repelled the mechanized assault by the occupiers until late in the evening. The front line fought confidently because they could feel the support of heavy artillery.
We can see, and, well, I personally can tell when it's foreign weapons like HIMARS or LRS in action. There were many hits on the infantry. There were many hits on vehicles as well, and they were quite successful.
Despite dozens of Russian armored vehicles and motorcycles being destroyed, some enemy infantry managed to scatter into the bushes, but as night falls, drone night hunters go out to eliminate them. But even despite such an onslaught, they failed to break through our defensive line. Yulia Kirienko, Alexander Shian, Ole Mostovi, TSN 1+1, Marathon, United News.
They are burning equipment and destroying enemy personnel. Fighters of the 93rd Separate Mechanized Brigade showed how they suppressed the enemy near Pokrovsk the day before. There, taking advantage of bad weather conditions, the occupiers tried to launch assaults. But they couldn't hide from the eyes of our defenders. At the same time, Ukrainian soldiers are certain that the attacks will continue today as well. So they are preparing to repel enemy assaults. Overall, during the past day, the General Staff recorded 234 combat engagements on the front, with about a third of them occurring specifically in the Pokrovsk direction. The Russians are also actively trying to advance on the Lyman, Kostiantynivka, Kupiansk, Oleksandrivka, and southern Slobozansky sectors. They spare neither equipment nor people. Even though the enemy's losses have already exceeded 1,121,000 wounded and killed. Powerful explosions and columns of smoke. A drone parade in Volgograd. The buzzing and banging started there around 2 in the morning. The regional governor later confirmed the mass attack, and the enemy's Ministry of Defense reported that air defense had brought down 19 drones. However, there were some unpleasant consequences. The debris from the downed drones allegedly damaged 3 apartment buildings. Windows were blown out in a school and a kindergarten. A few days before this, on October 9th, UAVs were already circling over the Volgograd region. They tested the strength of boiler houses and the Lukoil oil refinery. This enterprise processes 15 tons of oil annually. Earlier, attacks on the region and the plant were recorded on September 18th and August 22nd. Are you following the work of the good drones? Write in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like this video. It helps promote Ukrainian language content on the platform. Powerful attack and 21 hits. The Air Force reports on enemy targets that were shot down. In total, during the night of October 11th, the Russians launched 78 drones at Ukraine, more than 40 of which were Shaheds. They attacked from Oryol, Milerovo, Kursk, and occupied Crimea. From Cape Choda. As of 9 a.m., units of the UAV systems and mobile fire groups shot down and suppressed 54 drones in the north, south, and east. Strikes were recorded at 6 locations. A massive raid of strike drones targeted energy and civilian infrastructure. Odessa came under fire during the night. 1 person was injured. More than 20 other Odessa residents required psychological assistance. After the strike, part of the city lost power. The Russians struck an electrical substation, a hotel and restaurant complex, and 3 residential buildings. Rescuers evacuated 2 people from the fire and quickly extinguished the blaze. The Russians attacked Oblenergo workers in Chernihiv region with strike drones. 1 person was killed and 4 others were injured. They were hospitalized. This was reported by the military administration. It all happened in the Semenivka community. The occupiers' drone hit the repair workers' vehicle. It caught fire, and while the aftermath was being dealt with, the Russians struck again, this time hitting another vehicle belonging to the energy workers. The occupiers also fired on the local fire brigade that had arrived to help, according to the military administration. 4 people were injured in Kherson. The Dnipro district of the city was under targeted shelling. There, a Russian drone attacked an ambulance crew that had arrived on a call. An ambulance paramedic was injured and hospitalized with a blast injury. A little later, another city resident was injured while he was outside during the enemy attack. And 2 more people sought medical help for injuries they had sustained the day before due to Russian shelling of Kherson. Among them is a 17-year-old girl in the Kharkiv region. 3 people were injured as a result of enemy shelling. In Chuhuiv, a civilian enterprise came under enemy fire. A 33-year-old employee was injured. In Semenivka, a drone hit a residential building. A married couple was wounded. In the village of Hrushivka, private houses were damaged. In Veliki Burluk, a fire broke out at the warehouses. A house also caught fire due to shelling in the village of Horokovatka